Welcome to Dad Hammer Bolters and Booze, where we discuss all things Warhammer while staying hydrated with an adult beverage. I am David the Warboss, and I'm joined by the Dad Hammer crew. A little bit different intro this time because I have more than just Medicae Steve. I'm joined by the Dad Hammer crew. We're three people as a crew, a crowd, a team, whatever. And I've got Medicae Steve here with me and Chief Librarian Lawson. Steve, how we doing?
We're doing good, man. It's good to be back. I was adrift in the warp there for a minute. So appreciate you fellas picking up the heavy work and taking up my slack. So yeah, it's good to be back.
The coastal warp.
That's right. It was not too bad actually.
Yeah.
So nice to be away.
Yeah, well, good. Did you get any Warhammery stuff done? Did you read anything? Did you do any modeling or painting?
I got pretty deep into the Gaunt's Ghost series in the book.
Nice.
But that's about it. Yeah, it's really good, by the way.
Reading.
Reading.
I don't know about that.
Words.
Yeah, they're hard.
Words on page.
Yeah, that's difficult. I always fall asleep whenever I read. So, well, glad to have you back, my friend. Yeah, and the good news is you did come back. You weren't replaced.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a +1. So, Mr. Chief Librarian Lawson, how are you doing?
Hi, it's me, the +1. How's it going?
the third wheel.
I am what keeps this tricycle going. Without me, you guys would just be a bicycle.
Oh,
yeah, that's right.
I mean, we'd be faster though.
You know? Would you though? I don't know, but okay.
Probably not.
But I bring stability. You guys would just fall over without me. You're just two wheels that can't stand up.
All right, so serious question. Serious question. When's the last time anyone rode a bike?
Not too long ago.
Oh, okay. Because we went on vacation. My wife and I went on vacation many years ago, and I used to ride bikes as a kid all the time, but it had been probably 15 years. And what they say, once you never forget how to ride a bike. And so I get back on, and oh my gosh, I couldn't stop laughing at myself because I was like the wobbliest bike rider. It was really sad. But
so it's a lie. Everything they told me growing up as a kid is a lie.
Pretty much. I mean, just stick with the tricycle.
Just exaggeration.
Oh man, we're off to a roaring start. Well,
indeed.
Lawson, thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
We have a phenomenal show. We've got so much to talk about. Warhammer Day was upon us, and we're going to talk about everything Warhammer Day. Lots of cool models, really awesome stuff showing off. Some controversial stuff, a little bit, things that have divided the community. Maybe, I don't know. Some of it was kind of lame, but some of it was really good. We'll talk about all that stuff, and then we'll also hit the Meta Watch. For those that are not aware, Meta Watch is really just a look back from the Warhammer community guys, the hosts, Stu and Nick. They'll talk about the latest tournament scene and who won, who lost, and they'll have a big table of win percentage to see which army is doing really well. And that also determines what kind of rules changes and army balance things that they do. So we'll talk about the latest Meta Watch and what that means for different armies and the community. So lots to get to discuss there. Thank you so much for listening to our show. Make sure to rate, follow, subscribe on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen. And then you can find us on our website, dadhammerpodcast.com, and all over social medias. And, we've been trying to ratchet up our social media presence, taking more pictures and putting more stuff on there. Lawson just recently finished up a really cool diorama that we're going to put up on our social media site and feature on our website too. So make sure you check that out if you are so inclined. But first, before we get into the Warhammer Day stuff or the Meta Watch, we're going to start with the most important part of every Dad Hammer podcast, and that is, what are we drinking? And, I'll go first. And then mine's not really that. I mean, it's okay. It's not that exciting. We're going to start with the lame drink first. Mine is a repeat. And I say that with a little bit of a question because I think I've made it before. I think so. This is called a cable car, and it's got some spiced rum and some lemon juice and some orange curacao and some simple syrup, and it's all mixed up. And it's pretty good. It's like a citrusy, sugary drink. I don't know. I mean, it's fine.
It's like a pirate old fashioned.
Sure. I mean, I feel like a pirate. I don't know.
Where's the rum?
Maybe just the limp, like the peg leg. That's kind of the only thing about piratey about me is I walk with a little bit of a limp and a strut.
Kind of like you ride a bike.
Yeah. Exactly.
a little bit of a struggle on the regular basis.
A struggle, very much a struggle. Yeah, less of a limp and a strut, more of a struggle. I think that's good. Like, at some point in my life, I went from having a strut to a struggle.
Yeah, that's right.
What are you doing? Why are you walking like that? I'm just struggling.
Just old dude. Just struggling.
Just a struggle. I like that, man. So Lawson, that's the new catchphrase.
I got you.
All right. Well, anyway, so my drink's kind of lame. But Steve, you're gonna have the cocktail, but we'll hit Lawson. What do you got tonight for the mocktail?
I'm pretty excited about this because it tastes awesome. It's so much better than I thought it would. So we got these things. It's a craft mix variety pack. That is the name of it. It is a mixed drink, like pre-made mixed drinks. Comes with a bunch of different flavors, and essentially all you have to, the way it's intended, you add liquor, water, and ice, and then the flavor packet that you have, and that's all you have to do. However,
nice.
I repurposed it a little bit. So what I did is I took one of the craft mixes, and it is called Blood Orange Mai Tai. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I probably didn't. That's okay. Anyways.
Nope, that's right. I
took the packet and I mixed it with a sparkling flavored water. It's the brand of the water is American Ice. And it was classic lemonade mixed with the blood orange Mai Tai. And it is like a lemony orange fizzy fruit punch. I don't know how to, it's awesome.
That sounds good.
I had mediocre expectations and was absolutely this thing is delicious. I'm very much impressed. So
wow. So I wonder if you like put some ice and blended that up. I bet that'd be really good for like a frozen drink too.
That would probably be awesome because the flavor is amazing. The fizzy water that the American Ice provides with the fruity flavor that the packet provides, they complement each other very well. So I don't know. Blending a fizzy water, I've never done that before, so I don't know how well that would go.
Yeah, fair enough. A little bit of science experiment.
A little messy.
It's gonna be the new Altoid, not Altoids. The things in Coke.
Mentos.
Thank you, Mentos and Coke.
Yeah. I wonder what Altoids would do in Coke. Nothing.
Probably nothing. You'd make your Coke minty.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you'd waste two things.
You just waste two things.
Be curiously strong.
Yeah. Well, cool. That's a good mocktail. I like the balance. Hopefully our listeners do as well, where we've got the cocktails and the mocktails. And some nights, I mean, Steve's been this way too. Some nights you just don't want to mess with anything alcohol. You just need something that tastes good.
That's right.
And so yeah, I'm gonna have to try that. That sounds really good.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Steve, what kind of cocktail?
Yes,
you got the official Warhammery cocktail. What you got?
Yeah. So it's nothing like overly special or, wild, but it's a little out of my wheelhouse. I don't usually drink these. So I was like, I've been wanting to do that. So let's do it. And it's really just a Bloody Mary. But I decided to call it the Chain Axe because, it's the favorite weapon of the World Eater Berserkers. And, Bloody Mary just looks like a murder in a cup. So... and it's Halloween, so it works.
Very spooky.
It is spooky.
Yeah. It could be, the blood of your enemies or tomato juice. Nobody's got to know.
Yeah.
So you just take 1.5 ounces of your favorite vodka and 4 ounces of Zing Zang Bloody Mary mix. I don't know. I like the name, and it just made me laugh in the store, so I bought it. I imagine they're all pretty similar.
I like your decision-making process.
This one made me laugh.
That's funny.
Yeah, you're over there in the grocery store laughing. Oh, well, that's it.
That's the one. It's got to be good. Splash the lime juice, pour it over ice, and man, then you can go crazy. Then you can get celery stalks, olives, pickles, bacon,
Oh man.
raw meat, whatever,
Ew.
whatever lets the
Okay,
blood
alright.
flow for the blood god, right?
So before we go any further, I have to tip my hand for a second here. As a resident non-drinker of alcohol, do you actually put raw meat on your Bloody Mary? Like in all kids?
No, that
Okay,
was a
okay,
joke.
okay.
No,
Hey,
no,
whoa,
no.
calm down. People do crazy things. I had to know.
I mean,
I've
Steve,
never had a Bloody Mary before.
Lawson was getting ready to just leave the podcast. It was just like, wait a minute, is this what you guys do? I'm out of here.
Who is this? I've met him, but I didn't know he was a savage.
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty disgusting, Steve. But see,
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean, the thing is, what's funny about it is Lawson was like, well, okay, first of all, that sounds gross to me, but it is Steve. So he was a little bit like, I mean, I don't want to be judgmental, but you know.
Well, it's not because it was Steve. It is because it's to each his own, right? If you want to put raw meat on your Bloody Mary, by all
No, that's
means, go ahead.
gross. No, if you
I-
do that, you're gross. You're a gross
Okay, all right,
person.
listen,
You should
listen.
never do that.
and professionally, medically speaking, I do not
Can't
condone
recommend it. Okay, as a
That's
medical
do not
professional, you
That's the-
cannot recommend.
No stars. Do not recommend.
as the resident Medicae, don't do this.
That's right. Don't do it. Well, I'm not a big fan of the Bloody Mary in general, so I will probably not be sampling this chain axe cocktail that you've made,
Yeah,
especially if
yeah.
it's got any disgusting raw meat on it, especially.
No.
But I hope you enjoy your chain axe. I will enjoy my lame cocktail that I've forgotten whether or not I've had it before. And Lawson, you enjoy your fruit punch fizzy thing.
Yeah,
And if you blend it, pictures and video, or it never happened. So
Yeah, that's right.
all right.
Video, please.
Yep. Cheers and bottoms up, guys.
cheers.
Cheers, fellas.
Well, let's get into some Warhammer Day action, some news, all kinds of stuff. I personally was really excited about War. I don't know. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm always excited whenever they do some kind of preview. It could be the lamest stuff ever, and I'm always excited. I can't help it. I don't know about you guys. Are you? I mean, anytime they do a Warhammer Day or preview, I'm always really, really hopeful and jacked up about it.
I agree. If I wasn't on the road, I would have been glued to it.
It sounds like a lack of dedication to me, Steve.
I know. That was a cop out.
Yeah, you should have just pulled over, like your whole family. I can imagine your family in there singing like songs in the back seat, and all of a sudden you pull over on some strange back road. Dad, what are you doing? Shh, Warhammer Day.
You're quiet.
Well, there was all kinds of cool stuff that was announced. So I'll start just at the very top. I mean, we'll go down each major announcement, and we'll start off with you know,
Oh, man.
I don't know what to say. The first announcement was supposed to be the start off with a bang, right? This one not so much. So they announced a new AdMech model, and first and foremost, I'm not a huge AdMech player, but that's okay, right? I'm always excited about new
Right.
models. They showed off what's this called, a Skitari Scatros, something like that. And if you haven't seen it, go to the Warcom site, check it out. It is basically a sniper with a steampunk looking rifle on Inspector Gadget legs.
Yeah. Go.
Uh,
Inspector Gadget.
yeah,
It's so bad.
It was
It's
really
just bad.
it was really bad. So, I mean, I don't know. My initial thought, of course, the paint job looks really good. And trying to stick with the positives. The head looks cool with the like two goggles. Basically, that's what it looks like.
Mhm.
I think the sniper rifle looks really sweet. The all of the different little antenna stuff sticking out and very very mechanized. But it almost looks like with the legs when they cut them off at the knees, they just ran out of ideas and they're just like, I don't know, let's just put a couple of sticks down there. And
Yeah.
they have the exhaust pipe. It just looks like they ran out of ideas to me.
I mean, yeah, oh man, I just can't get into the exhaust pipe. Just I can almost let the legs slide a little bit, but Why does it have to hang so low,
I don't, I
man?
don't, I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I have no desire to play AdMech, first of all, but
Mm-hmm.
this model just looks. I mean, and also, even if let's assume for the moment that someone looking at this and saying, "Oh man, this is my jam. I love how crazy it looks. It's very 40K. It's very over the top." And so we'll on the positive. But even if you put it together, I feel like this thing's going to snap in two
Mm.
the minute that you try to transport it anywhere. Lawson, I know you're not an AdMech player or anything, but I mean, what were your thoughts on this? Okay.
Not good. Not great, to be honest. I yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's tough. Yeah, there were just maybe some design choices that could have been done a tad differently. The legs just look like you guys are old enough to remember cartoons, right?
Oh, thanks.
Okay, cool. So, do you
Appreciate
remember
that.
you're welcome. In Looney Tunes when they would like get stuck on trees or bamboo and they would like walk on them like stilts? That's what I
Yes.
think of when I look at that AdMech model. And I feel that feels bad, but it's all I can think of. And Steve, I gotta agree, the exhaust on I would have been better if they had attached it going up off the top of the backpack or something, and then maybe
Yeah.
put like a cool scanner or camera or something like
Yep.
to help extend his range or whatever. That would
Yep.
be super cool because he
Mm-hmm.
makes me think of a scout kind of, not entirely necessarily a scout, but like a surveyor. So they sit in the back line, they take out high value targets, and they can get a really good lay of the land because of their go gadget stilts. I would also think they would need a scanner or camera at the top, so the exhaust would want to go up and then attach that surveillance device up there, not at the bottom of the ground where the exhaust drags.
But
So
it doesn't
Or
even make any sense. Like
it
the
also
stilts. I don't understand why this. Why would you need stilts? Like every other sniper, and I mean, I'm thinking about the Eliminators and
Mhm.
Space Marines, right? They've got a cool cloak and they're hiding behind ruins that come with the models. And if they're just trying to achieve height, then they could have put them up on maybe a giant pile of mechanical looking ruins or even honestly take the stilts off and put them on some kind of weird tank tread body or something. I don't
or
know
just
they could have.
or
anything.
just articulate them, make it look like he could go fast and give him some movement characteristics or
Like
something.
Bionic Man
I
or
don't know.
something.
Yeah, because right now it's like, hey, I'm here to drywall your ceiling, and I'm just not intimidated at all.
Oh my gosh. I hope I play against someone who has this because that's the first thing I'm going to say. I'm like, wow, what color? What color are you putting up there on the ceiling?
Yeah.
While you're up there, can you change out the ceiling
Can you-
fan?
yeah. I got a floodlight out. You'd be aces at
Oh
that.
my gosh. Well, I mean, even the stats, like they showed off the stats here. It's one attack, one shot. This is of course, this is the only thing they're showing. Maybe there's some extra stuff that they're just not telling us,
Mhm.
but it's one shot. You're hitting on a 3+. I would think a 2+ would probably be a little more intimidating.
Yeah.
So you're still
Oh
hitting
yeah.
on a 3+. The strength's not that great, and then the damage is variable. There's some extra goodies in here, whether or not you're hitting infantry, and I would guess you would bring this guy in to take out character units because it's got the precision
Mm.
keyword, and it can really just snipe anything. But it just looks so derpy. I don't see anyone maybe that's serious, quote unquote serious about
Mm.
an army. But then again, if you're somebody that's looking to complete an AdMech army and you want something crazy, because everything else in the AdMech army I think looks okay. It looks pretty
Yeah,
cool.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, just this one, I don't know, just feels out of place, and they feel like they ran out of ideas. But yeah, that's okay. So we're gonna start with that one. That wasn't the best way to kick off Warhammer Day. But I just thought I always like to listen to the announcer guys when they're talking about the new models, and you could just tell. I think they didn't say it was so cool. I think they just said it was really interesting or something
Yeah.
like that. I feel for them, because they've got to put lipstick on a pig at this point, but
Uh-huh.
that's okay.
That's right.
Anyway, so from there, I thought they redeemed themselves on Warhammer Day, and they shifted over to the Necrons. That was the next announcement. Necron's getting a revamp of an existing model,
Mm-hmm.
Imhotep the Stormlord. And Steve, you and I are both are Necron players. What do you think of this guy, the new Stormlord?
So I loved it, man. And actually, I had a hard time when I was deciding. You know me, I start making up paint schemes as I go along,
Mm-hmm.
and most of my stuff doesn't really matter. I might have five like look like this and five look like that, but I was, trying to think about what dynasty to do for the Necrons I had, and in ninth edition, I don't remember the dynasty, but they were like Imhotep's guys, right? Like he was the one, and kind of like a sort of an upstart against the Silent King,
Right.
very powerful stats, etc. But I didn't, because they were just literally all silver. I mean, there was like no color to them. They were pretty kind of plain Jane, right? But man, this model looks so good, and I kind of hope that that sort of filters back in, because it's been so long since I sort of read through like that dynasty, and sort of what they can do, and he buffed their troops and stuff so well. Man, he's going to be like an uber overlord.
Yeah.
Pretty excited for that. The old model was fine, but I felt like it just didn't find a place in the game. But now I have a feeling that obviously they're bringing this model back, and this gives me hope for more characters as well, other characters. And man, it's a good looking model. I love that cloak.
Yeah,
That's really
I
cool.
think the only thing that I'll say is that I would say this model is fine. I mean, it's
Hmm.
um, the cloak definitely adds a different dimension to it, which is a good thing, but it's not doing anything crazy. It's just kind of standing there
Yeah,
on
that's
a
true.
floating platform, and I don't I that I mean it's not a bad model at all. I mean, but it looks about the same as every other model in the Necron army. So it didn't really do enough for me to stand out. I wish it might have maybe been standing on top of even a larger rock. I know
Hmm.
the big complaint in the community about all these tactical rocks that they put on so many rocks, but then that gets rid of the little translucent poles and stuff that they have to put
Hmm.
models on. But I don't mind this, but it wasn't anything that just really stuck out at me. I don't know. Lawson, did any thoughts on this model?
Uh, I don't actively play Necrons, so I don't have much of an opinion. I do believe. I feel free if you guys know more than I do in this situation. The previous one was a uh, not a resin. It was the metal one, right? Or
Um,
did they have a plastic one before this?
no,
I think it may have been a fine
Was it
cast or
fine?
something
Okay.
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
Well, I do really. I think the model's really really cool. I think he's got a really awesome pose, and personally, I prefer the tactical rocks over the clear butt sticks. Um,
yeah,
they
yeah.
because
I
with
do
the
too.
rocks I can clip the rocks off and make my own base. I can. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. I can really get creative with it, but with the butt sticks, it's kind of hard to do much with those. You can't hide
Mhm.
them. It's very difficult to make it blend in unless you
Hmm.
go like in the case of inceptors. So for my inceptors, I bought these smoke trails instead of the
Yeah.
clear sticks, and I like them a lot better. Or Steve, I know you have some suppressors that are I think pose jumping off of that rock, right?
Yeah, I made that look like a derelict buildings, as if they just like landed on, kind of a ruin or something like
Yeah,
that.
I just eh, I prefer the tactile rocks. It's easier to build around. Or if you just feel lazy, if you're like, I don't really want to build a whole base here, it's okay. You have tactical
Yeah,
rock
that's right.
saves the day.
Yeah, I
So
agree. And looking at this model, they have a couple of pictures where the cloak is really the thing
yeah,
that stands out the most. What I do like about it is got the little scarab bugs crawling over the cloak, and if for anyone that's seen the Pariah Nexus show, which we've talked quite a bit
Mm.
about, they have a couple of scenes where those little scarabs are crawling all over the place, and gives you a really creepy, almost like The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser movie back in the day, where those little scarabs are crawling around. That's what this reminds me of, and it's got a good Egyptian type of a mummy feel to it. So I don't mind the cloak at all. I wish it would have been they would have put something else maybe on the model, or being in a more dynamic pose, but that's okay. I think the model looks cool, and for anyone that wants a replacement, or to add this one to their force, I'm sure it'll come in some Christmas box set with a bunch of other stuff that you may or may not want. But anyway, this model looks cool. I thought this was a good step up from the Inspector Gadget model that we first got on Warhammer Day. So a good upgrade. But then from there, I thought it really took a step up. They showed off a Age of Sigmar model, and we talk a lot about 40K. This is mostly a 40K show, but we all look at the Age of Sigmar. I have a Skaven army. Steve, I know on a backlog you got the Slaves of Darkness, and Lawson, you've got the your mulch man, your skeleton army. Mulch man is a long story. It's what's that thing called that eats the
see, you've asked me and I have now forgotten. One moment.
Yeah.
It'll come.
Well, whatever.
Continue,
It's that
it'll come
one
back to me.
model that eats the enemies and then turns it into more skeletons. It's got like a backpack that it throws them in, and I always just call it the mulch man. It just turns them into mulch and then spits out more skeletons. The most annoying model in all of Age of Sigmar, in my opinion, unless you're playing it, and then it's like the best thing ever. So, but anyway, they showed off a Lord Relictor Ionis Cryptborn. That's a mouthful, but holy crap. I mean, this
Good
thing
grief.
is a Stormcast model with a skull face. Very not very un Stormcast like, in my opinion. Riding on top of a red dragon that's on top of another ruin, and man, this thing looks cool. I think this is the coolest thing, and I'm a Stormcast Eternal. I'm trying to build a Stormcast army in the process, and when this thing came out, I got so excited. I'm definitely picking this guy up as soon as I get the rest of my armies painted, and that's a different story. But this thing looks so cool. Lawson, I guess was this giving you vibes of your skeleton army?
This model particularly, not honestly, no. When I saw the character, anyways, the first thing I thought of was the chaplains from 40K.
Yeah.
This model though, it's fantastic. I won't lie. There was a part of me, just as a modeler, that wanted to get the model just to build it and paint it and make it look super cool. It's a really cool looking model. That one's impressive. It's pretty neat. Also, by the way, shame on you. You forgot the most important part of his name. It's Sigmar's prodigal son. You forgot that bit. That's not very nice. Yeah.
Very important.
Yeah.
Well, you know me. I'm not the lore guy. I just like the thing that looks really cool on the table that I get to move around. And it's like, oh yeah, but this is the child of the so and so, and he died. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna roll dice.
Does it do smasha? If yes, then play.
That's right. That's me. So you guys tell me the cool backstory, and I'm like, yep, that sounds good. I'm gonna roll these d6s
all day long.
That's right. But this thing is a centerpiece. And then the best part, I thought, is that you can include it if you want to in an all Stormdrake army, essentially. And I've got 2 of the Stormdrake Guard already, and I think this would just be cool to have as a almost like 40K. It'd be like a leader attached to it. So
man, I'm a chaplain nut. I just, those are some of my favorite like characters and stuff. And I saw this, I was like, oh, how could I make that 40K? I can't. But man, that's model of the year, I think.
I don't know, man.
So, to me, so far,
it's pretty good.
I don't know, but the next one is really good.
Yeah, but we're not going to talk about that one yet. Actually, we
Okay,
are.
well.
That's fine. Yeah. So, all right. So it's a what a segue.
Yeah.
So the next one is a Sylvaneth model. And I'm gonna butcher the name. I don't know. It's Belthanos, first Thorn of Kurnoth. Man, I don't know who comes up with these names. Like I feel like they've got a committee that just sits down. Like, all right, we got a tree on top of a bug. What are we gonna call this guy? You know, I
Tree on
know.
a-
I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that
well,
what the Sylvaneth
yeah,
are just
sure.
there's spirits inside like tree branches and leaves and stuff, and this one happens to be riding on top of a bug.
okay. So picture this, right?
Okay,
The
sorry.
the
I
committee's
know I've simplified it a little.
no. I'm gonna make it better for you. The
Okay,
committee
thank you.
sits at the table and they're like, okay, we have this giant leader tree on top of a bug. What are we gonna name him? And somebody goes, he looks really cool. We should call him Thanos. Somebody's like, no, you've already used Thanos. You can't use Thanos. He goes, okay, well, we have to make it different. What about Bell Thanos?
And then everybody stands up and
And
claps,
he
and
just
they
claps. Yeah.
carry him out of the room. Yeah, I think regardless of the name, I mean, obviously people get paid a lot of money to come up with these crazy names. This is a very cool model. I like its pose where it's kind of trumpeting it's got a, I don't even know how to describe this thing. It's a tree with a lot of tree armor and a lot of antlers and thorns and a cape full of leaves. It's very well, Sylvaneth. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. And then a very red, fiery looking beetle thing. And then the cool part, I think, it's got this horn that I could just imagine, just declaring the troops, the forces are coming. Here comes the cavalry, right, to come in and take over the enemy. I just thought this model looked really, really cool. The only thing is, I'm not a. This gives me elf vibes, and
Uh-oh.
being a Votan player
Uh-oh.
and a dwarf player, I'm like, well, wait a
Oh,
minute.
here we go.
There's too many curly cues on this thing, and too many leaves, and it just doesn't do it for me. However, I still think it's a cool model.
Well,
It's a good model.
as your resident lore nerd, I can tell you that the horn, that is the horn of
Belthanos.
no, it's essentially it's from like the Warhammer the Old World. So you had the Orion, who was the big wood elf leader kind of in the Old World, and he would call the Wild Hunt is what it was called, and it was
Oh.
this thing where basically all the wood elves gather together and they just go on this really long journey across the world, just hunting. Um, so he's got the horn of Orion. It's the horn of the Wild Hunt. So he's essentially calling the Wild Hunt back. Is kind of the
Mm.
general. That's the gist of it. I'm sure there's probably way more that goes into that, but I recognized the horn, and when they were talking about it at the Warhammer Fest, I was like, oh, I know what that is. So that's what that is. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's way more lore into it than just that. That's very surface level, but that's the gist of it.
Well, no, that's cool. I think anytime you can bring in a story, even if it's for elves. I mean, when you can bring in a story, jokes aside, when you can bring in a story into the game and put a theme around, what you're doing, it just makes it so much more fun. And I remember watching some of the best battle reports that they've done on Warhammer TV. I think involve the Sylvaneth because they have the wildwood, the trees,
Mm-hmm.
and they've had a couple
Mhm.
where they were going up against Nurgle, and one of the missions was to purify the pools of water, and they would have those on the table, and then whenever Nurgle would come in and infest them, they would swap it out with a different color pool, and then when the Sylvaneth would come in and purify it. I mean, I just like what they do with Age of Sigmar, but also whenever they have the Sylvaneth in there, the models look really just fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
the picture that they have with some of these archers and other Sylvaneth elf looking guys riding around on these winged beetles. It's just a really cool backdrop for an army and building that. So uh, impressive model. But there was a couple more releases as part of Warhammer Day, and I thought we'd quickly hit on. They did announce some kill team stuff for
Mhm.
Aldari and some new Space Marine scouts. The Aldari look cool, right? I don't think they're anything special per se. It's nothing crazy new that they haven't done before. They're good looking plastic Aldari models. I mean, they look good. Same for
Hmm.
the scouts. I like the poses, but they're still just more Space Marine looking guys. But that's one thing. And then they showed off. I saw that they were going to show off some terrain. So originally, when they scanned the first picture, I saw terrain in the background. I got really excited. And then they showed the terrain, and I was like, "Oh man!" I know it's Kill Team. I know you don't want anything
Yeah,
too crazy, but I was just a little disappointed in this terrain.
I think it could have gone a better direction. I've been looking at it. I was like, how can I use that? And I mean, you could, but it's not going to do you any good in 40K.
No.
Like
Mm-mm.
you're just either going to be standing on an elevated platform, or you're going to be in the wide. You're going to be under it and still be kind of open and no concealment. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, it looks cool, but it would work great for Kill Team. But it's still kind of open. I mean,
Yeah.
Kill Team,
Even the
you need a little
board,
bit more.
even the
Yeah.
board that comes with here, I just think looks. Is that water? Is it sand?
Well,
Is it gravel?
so it's
I don't know.
supposed to be water, and the idea, eh, although I agree with everything you just said, the idea behind the terrain is that you're essentially on an oil rig, and if,
Hmm.
if I understood the way it was explained correctly,
Okay.
there are special rules where you can push other characters off into the water, and they suffer
Hmm.
like
Okay.
some sort of, they either die or suffer some serious negative effects. So it's designed to like play together, which is great for Kill Team. But if you try and, like Steve said, take that outside of Kill Team into 40K, it's not going to work unless you seriously modify the terrain that comes in that box. And at that point, you may as well just go buy terrain that fits what you're looking for to begin
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I'm looking at the terrain too. It looks like a bunch of park benches.
Yeah.
you know,
yeah,
they just
and
lined
I'm
them
a
up.
little bit I'm a little put out too, because though it looks like they're fixing to change how they release this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Previously it was, you had all that Chalna terrain with the sisters and the towel, so you had everything you needed in the box. I don't think that's going to be the case here. I think you're going to get the figures and these little knickknacks, and I think this terrain is going to be sold in a separate box.
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, like a
and
kill
there would
zone.
be, yeah, and there would be no way I'd buy that. Like, because you don't need that to play the game.
True.
So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I like dual purpose train or multi purpose train, and this just not fitting it.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
I agree. I think just in general the Kill Team release was okay. People that like Kill Team,
Hmm.
I'm sure were really excited. It is what it is, and I don't necessarily have any complaints. It just wasn't super thrilled with it. And then, but right after the Kill Team announcement, they had the very last one to close out Warhammer Day, which was about the old world. And we don't need to spend a ton of time on it. They showed off the Bretonians, which, for anyone that played the original, I'm sure this is a big nostalgia trip for a lot of people. Models looked good. Any standouts? Of course, the Lord on Pegasus I thought was probably the best looking model.
Hmm.
The
mhm.
rest of them were good. They were fine. I think this is more of a nostalgia play, which is the point. But I did see that there's been a leak and they said at the beginning of the year, and I did see a leak that the old world would be coming out in February of 2024. So I don't know how confirmed that is, but I mean they tweeted that and I think took it down. So anyone that's excited about old world, I'm sure they're going to be showing off more in the next couple of months. I would think more different armies, more stuff. They're going to have another preview next month. They've already said so. My guess is that they'll go more into old world and maybe even show off more Age of Sigmar stuff that they and Warcry and things like that they didn't show during Warhammer Day. So lots of cool news, lots of cool models with Warhammer Day. very exciting. Hopefully, we will get to see more in the months to come. But we will be sure to react, of course, to all the new stuff coming out in the near future. Well, let's skip over now to the next segment, which was recent news that came out this week around the Meta Watch. And we've talked about the Meta Watch every so often. Number one, I think like I always come up with these made up rules. Dad Hammer rule number 34. And I think last week was 70, 73 or 70. Dad Hammer rule number 34. Don't ask me to reference it in the future, but it's don't chase the meta, which is not my rule. Everybody says that, but I mean, the main reason is that whenever we talk to new players and they look at the statistics they release this big chart to show which armies are winning all the time, which ones are losing all the time, or at least at the biggest amount of percentage loss and win rate. And they say, oh well, I don't want to play that army. And the reality is, I remember not just 1 month ago, my Leagues of Votan, my precious, wonderful Leagues of Votan, were in the 30% range for win percentage, feeling the burn.
Mm-hmm.
And then they made a couple of changes. They changed the points value, lowered the points, and that's a pro and a con, because now I no longer have 2,000 points of Votan. I have 1,500, so now I can't field a 2,000 point army. That's okay. But they lowered the points and then changed a couple of rules for their judgment tokens, and all of a sudden they're like in the top. They're in the top three. So it went from bottom to top. And so I always just like to preface whenever there's a new meta watch, especially for anyone listening that is a new player just getting into 40K, take all this meta watch stuff with a grain of salt. Find the army that you like, play that, and don't worry about all this. You just go with it. This is for the elite level players that are way beyond anything that the folks on this show do. I mean, these are tournament level people that are min-maxing their armies all the time. So all that said, fairly big shakeup in the meta watch. And Steve, I know you were really interested in this when it came out. Any major takeaways from looking at this list and things that you saw?
Who would have seen orcs number 2? No, but but I think the more important takeaway is that first meta watch was way out of whack.
Yeah.
I mean, and the swing was so huge. I mean, now the lowest percentage is 44%. The highest percentage, and this is win rate, is 57%. Man, that's about as good as you can get it. I mean, everything. I just counted it out and looked at it. 13 factions are between the 52% and 48% win rate. So you're talking, plus minus 2% at being 50-50, and that's over half the factions. So I think it means that the game itself and this last balance, it puts it in a healthy spot. Everything is as even. I really think right now what you're seeing, this is player skill. I think it feels like you could really take an army if you knew what you were doing, and probably push. Yeah, I think you could push Drakari up the line if enough people played it. If enough people learned it. I just think that some of these, maybe some of these that are at the bottom are just more difficult to play, which is weird because Custodes plummeted, which is interesting. But I don't know. I think this like very, very narrow band is where the game needs to be, and I don't think anybody should really. Well, I guess should, whatever.
Yeah,
but this is getting to be a fairly complaint-free zone as far as that goes.
Well, okay. So there's always going to be somebody that's complaining. I mean, I play orcs, Leagues of Votan, Chaos Space Marines. Looking
top 5 win rate.
Yeah, right. Don't chase the meta, he says.
Exactly. But I also have Space Wolves and Tyranids and Necrons. And those are towards the bottom. But I mean, a month ago, Leagues of Votan were at the very bottom. but that didn't stop me from wanting to play them. And I almost look at this as whenever I see an army that is mine at the time towards the bottom, it's kind of like an underdog story, where, and I was talking to someone earlier today, it's like, just because you have an army that is maybe in the 40% win rate, I mean, I liken it to a sports team, if you have a basketball or football team, if you walked into a stadium and someone told you, hey, your team only wins 44% of the time and my team wins 57% of the time, and be like, well, I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, we got a chance here. Yeah, of course you have a chance. Everybody has a chance. It's just a matter of what, the old adage, any given Sunday, for football, but anybody can show up and have an amazing game. Just because you have the best players or the best stats doesn't always mean that you're going to win. It all comes down to being the best general. So, Lawson, I know as someone that really looks at a lot of strategy and strategic points with all the armies you play. I'm looking at Thousand Sons, of course, that are right there in the middle of the pack. My question to you, for someone that I guess you're the veteran amongst all of us, you played the longest. My question to you here is, you've been in different spots on this chart, but looking at a Thousand Sons army, where do you think is going to be the biggest make or break kind of moment? What if a new player especially, or even a veteran, is right in the middle, where should they be thinking? Should they be thinking to field be a little more cavalier with their choices, or should they be less risk averse? Like where do you kind of see this playing out with armies that are in the middle of the pack?
Well, first, I would like to, as you did earlier, drop a little bit of a teaser for all present. You mentioned don't chase the meta and pick the armies you think is cool. What's funny you mentioned that. There actually is an article that will be coming to the website shortly that talks all about that. So there's a little bit of that.
Excellent.
Yeah, very nice.
To answer your question though, if you're kind of in the middle, well, so first and foremost, it's a dice game. At the end of the day, you can play Eldari and still lose because you just rolled really bad. It's very possible. For instance, I think the Sisters of Battle were pretty low on the scale before this most recent data slate. The Sisters of Battle were not super great. They were okay, and they won the tournament in Tampa this past tournament. So
yeah, I saw that.
It's it could go either way. Again, it would definitely come down to you as a general. The mission that you pulled can sometimes make a difference. The dice rolls, positioning, it comes down to a lot of different things. If you're kind of in the middle, there's a really good, you're kind of in that safe zone. So you could maybe, if you wanted to, at the end of the day, do what you think is cool. I play Thousand Sons, right? If I just wanted to run just one character and an army of Zongors, I don't technically think I could, but you know what? If I wanted to, why not? Is it going to work? Is it technically the best decision? It's a terrible decision. But if I want to do it because it's fun, I should do it because it's fun. It's a hobby. It's not a, this isn't a professional sport. Some people might view it as a professional sport, but for the vast majority of us who play, it's not a professional sport. It's a fun game. We get together and play with our friends and do cool stuff. Like Magnus, for instance. I love Magnus. I think he's such a cool character. And in ninth edition, to be honest, he was pretty bad. He was just not good. He was too big, and you could shoot him turn one if you just got really unlucky. I actually, David, you and I had that happen a couple times. You've almost blown Magnus off the board turn one in old ninth edition. It's tough. It's not good.
But in 10th, one of the coolest models, though, like in all of 40K, the thing is that Magnus is one of the most majestic.
Yeah.
Just most imposing. It's up there to me, like facing a Chaos Knight model that our friend Bill brings to the table. I'm just thinking, oh man, I'm going to die. Like as soon as a Chaos Knight or any type of knight, large character is on the table, I feel the same way about Magnus. Like if I'm playing orcs and I'm like, all right, here comes an orc boy to, smack your toenails. And like Magnus just looks like he's just going to destroy him immediately by looking at him.
Well, that's there.
And
There's this really cool ability called a Gaze of Magnus. It's totally a
Okay.
thing.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. All right.
Anyways, just do what's cool. Magnus obviously got a lot better in 10th with some of the reworks and changes, but if you think a strategy is cool, you should do that strategy. You never know. You really just you never know until you try. And it could be one of those things that, maybe it's a really dumb idea to run 60 Zongors and Magnus, right? That's probably terrible. But
Mm-hmm.
maybe I do it just for fun, and
Yeah.
maybe it pans out.
Mhm.
You really just don't know. So if you're like the vast majority of us, just go out there and have fun. Pick something that you think is cool. Like Steve, when we did the combat patrol, he brought Terminators, or it wasn't a combat patrol. We did a really small 1,000 point game.
Yeah,
He
that's right.
brought the Terminators and a Land Raider, just because he was like, I've always wanted to run this Land Raider, and it would be super cool. So
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Just have a good time. That's what this is about. It's go out there and have a good time. You've got models that you invested your time and effort and money into. Just have fun with the game.
Play them jokers. Yeah, have a good time.
Yeah, I and looking at the just the overall standings of all of this, I feel like and I was watching the commentary, and I know it doesn't sound exciting, but if anybody who's listening to this is really into this game like we are, I highly recommend you go to either the YouTube channel or to the website, the Warcom site, and watch the rules commentary. It's about 20 minutes long or so, where Nick is talking to Stu, the guy that does the rules, just going back and forth. And I mean, it's all here in the article for the most part. But one of the things
Mhm.
that I thought was really interesting is just thinking about and listening to him talk through how they make decisions and changes to try to balance the game out. And you can see this sweet spot. It's a pretty narrow sweet spot. It's not
Mhm.
like it's a 25 to, you know, 65% win rates, what they're targeting. No, they're targeting something really, really tight. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they can have all of these different factions, as well, all the data sheets and all of the different components to making this game, and it's still a dice game, and they still manage to get out the majority of the armies where everybody, no matter what army you pick, you feel like, oh, I'm going to have a good time, And one of the things that Stu said on that video, which I thought was super interesting, which is one of the reasons I love this game so much, and Age of Sigmar is no different, where the game is almost like a puzzle when you're building your army lists, whether it's through the Warhammer app or Battlescribe, or you're just using pencil and paper with the codex. But whether you're picking one unit versus another, okay, if I pick this character, and this is going to be a leader for this group, and come on, put those guys over here, and then I've got, well, wait a minute, now I want to take this vehicle, and it's a little more expensive, and it's, oh, this thing is 400 points. I don't know if it, man, but what if I took a 350 point, and it's that whole thing, and you second guess yourself forever, and then you get on the table and you find out, you know what, I'm just whatever. This has taken up so much time to math all of this out, but that's the appeal to me, is the puzzle. I look at when we're playing a 2,000 point game, especially where there's so many puzzle pieces on the table, and then instead of, and I'm gonna butcher this analogy, but instead of having all the puzzle pieces, and I'm in the midst of trying to put them all together, and then someone takes half of them and just throws them out the window, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not making that puzzle anymore. But I'm gonna make a new puzzle, and I'm gonna force them to
Yeah.
fit together now. But every single time you play, it's like you're putting together multiple puzzles, and to me, that is the biggest appeal of this game for someone who loves the actual tactics and strategy and feeling like the general of an army. I always thought that was really cool. So, um, I don't know. I'm encouraged by this meta watch. I think that they could probably make some other changes, and I'm curious. What if anything they would do to bump up Drukari, or to reduce. They've already nerfed Aldaria a little bit, and
Mhm.
I don't play either of these factions, but I'm just wondering what kind of changes they would make. Would they just bump up the points cost to make the army, like, have less models on the table? Would that make them more easier to kill? I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think you just need, maybe at the moment, more people playing Drukari.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it looks good. I was looking at the list and the army, so I kind of, when I talk to people that are interested in new factions and stuff, I always look at them like, all right, I feel like this is a technical army. This army is a sledgehammer. You know,
Yeah.
I think there are nuances that make some armies just easier to play.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not quite so complicated. And if you look through the list, they're just really sprinkled out in no particular order. There's, difficult army here. There's an easier army to play here. So I feel like the rule sets are okay if everything is really distributed like it is and in such a narrow bandwidth.
Yeah.
Um, my my guess is that, just, I don't know, maybe people put their Jakari from ninth on the shelf and not as many people are playing them. Maybe it's a more expensive army to play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm talking like financially,
Mm.
and that might be a sort of linchpin. Some armies are just cost more to field
Yeah.
because the kits are more expensive. There are more models, etc. So maybe that's a portion of it. Maybe there's nothing wrong with the rules. It just, maybe not enough people are playing
I
them.
mean, it could be, but I'm looking at orcs at the very top, and
Uh-huh.
orcs. I mean, I've got around 3,000 points of orcs, and I mean
Hmm.
that's, if I put 2,000 points of orcs on the table, it's like 100 and something models. So they're
Right.
not necessarily expensive per se, because you can get a box of 10 orc boys for relatively cheap, and
Hmm.
they're easy to put together, relatively easy to paint. Um, but the orcs, I remember when I first started playing Age of Sigmar, and I picked Skaven because I like earthy type of armies. So
Hmm.
dwarves, orcs, space wolves are kind of grizzly guys in the snow, and orcs are very Neanderthal. And then you've got Skaven, which are in caves and hollows and things
Rats.
like, yeah, exactly, rats. But they are, Skaven I thought would be an easy army to play, just like orcs. Okay, well, it's
Hmm.
a horde. I got a bunch of stuff, and I'm just going to sprint it up the field and smash into the other army. That's basically orcs. It's really not.
Hmm.
There's some nuance to them, but for the most part, it's a fun army to play because it doesn't really require you to think too much. You need to be close to
Hmm.
stuff to keep them alive, but that's really about it. With Skaven, and I don't want to get it too far away from the meta watch thing, but with Skaven, it is, and I've said this before in our show, it's one of the most difficult armies. Turns out, I didn't know this going into it. One of the most difficult armies to play in Age of Sigmar, because they are so easy to kill. They're even easier to kill than orcs, and they just kind of popcorn off the board. And you have to keep so many models close to them, and you have to have all these contingency plans and auras around them just to keep them viable. So, I would say that, Steve, your theory about number of models, honestly, it could be anything, because you look at
Yeah,
Custodes.
it's true. Yeah.
Custodes are down there, and they're an elite army.
Yeah.
They have very
Mm.
few
Yeah.
models. So
Yeah.
I think that Warhammer in general is so unique. And yes, you have to put together models and paint them, and there's tons of work that goes into it. But once you get to the point where you're fielding an army, this kind of stuff, just as a little bit of a, well, a lot of a bit of a nerd, but when I look at this and look at all the stats, I just think it's so interesting, and you get into the little nuance of each army and what's going to make an impact. So um, I'm curious to see what they're going to do next, because are they going to try to go, they're highlighting in red, three different factions,
Hmm.
so Aldari and orcs. They're going to do something. I would assume orcs, they might just jack up the points cost a little bit, because they
Mm.
don't want to mess with the rules too much. Aldari, they might knock them down a little bit, which would of course put Leagues of Votann at the top. That's what everybody wants. So
That's
right.
what we're all looking for.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. um, but there's a couple of options here that they could do. So I'm interested to see what they're going to do next. I think the next data slate, they announced it towards the end, but they did talk about how that 10th edition is in a relatively healthy place. But
Hmm.
January 2024, it's crazy to think that January is almost upon us, but January in the next few months is when they're going to have the next balanced data slate, which they will announce points changes, rules changes, balanced things which will of course impact the next meta watch. So a lot of cool stuff, very interesting. Hopefully we can get some games in.
Yeah.
Now that the leagues of Votan are of course not at the very bottom. I gotta figure out how to field 2,000 points. I gotta go get some more, I guess. I don't know.
Buy more dwarves.
I know, but I want like a dreadnought. I want a dwarf dreadnought or something.
That would be kind of cool.
A giant Votan head with legs on stilts, and they could be like the AdMech.
True.
Be
Then
matching.
they'd be normal size.
Yeah. Oh. Brutal. Well, on that note, that'll be the end of this episode of Dad Hammer Bolters and Booze while I go cry in my cocktail after that harsh comment by Lawson. But
Put some salve on that burn.
yeah. Well, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for your time, attention, and your service, Medicae Steve. Thank you, Chief Librarian Lawson. This is Dad Hammer, and we will see you next time for Bolters and Booze. Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.